lot of business coaches were saying, you got to find your calling, you got to find your passion and monetize that. And I think it's actually really bad advice, because the truth is passion is powerful, but it's not always profitable. All right, friends, welcome back to the podcast. Hi, we had the weirdest weather in Kansas City today with like this flash, like hailstorm, which was bizarre. And I've had the notes for this podcast up for like the last 2 hours on my screen, and I had to do a coaching call, or I got to do a coaching call inside of my inner circle group, and I'm sitting here finishing lunch. I'm so sorry. I'm literally eating the last bite. I'm talking to you. Tasted a little lunch of a tiny bit of white rice, a couple of grilled chicken breasts that my husband made that we call DAC, which stands for dry ass chicken. I love dried chicken breast. It's like a little bit burned on the outside. So I had some DAC, dry ass chicken, with white rice and avocado, because we're in full wedding effect, because Easton Allwood is getting married in just a couple weeks. So this is kind of sort of a little bit of a part two, but not really, but kind of sort of, for an episode that I did the other day. I want to talk about like finding your passion and starting a business based on like your passion or your calling. And so I did a podcast the other day, which was really more about like why some people just stay to where they're always dreaming, and some people are able to go from just dreaming to actually doing. And so one thing that I mentioned on that podcast that prompted me to do kind of sort of, again, this is kind of a part two. I feel a little bit all over the place. So all of you ADHD people, like, welcome. We are the same. You get me, I get you. And so I'm bouncing all over the place in my brain. I have a lot of words today. But one thing I mentioned on that podcast is that there are a lot of people that never graduate, from the dreaming to the doing. And part of that could be that sometimes people are stuck in the dreaming mode because they just can't figure out what it is that they want to do for a business. And sometimes what I hear is this, because I'll have people say, hey, Jennifer, I can't figure out one thing to focus on, one thing I want to do a business on. There's so many options. What do you suggest? Okay. So first of all, and let me just double check that I'm giving you the right link. I want you to go to jenniferallwood.com/focus. Okay. jenniferallwood.com/focus. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm sorry. It's chaotic over here. I actually just had a coaching call for my inner circle, and Ari came on the call because, again, there was a hailstorm. Jason was gone with one of the big kids, and it started hailing, and she was at my office door. I'm never going to tell my child, sorry, mommy's coaching. I mean, I love you all, but my kids always have priority. And as does my husband. So they need me game on. So I had her come in for the coaching call. She literally told all of my coaching clients that she's now making bracelets, and that she is selling said bracelets. She's been making beaded bracelets, and Ari ADHD is hard. I mean, she's, medicated, and like she really has a ADHD diagnosis. And so one of her superpowers, and people that have that form of ADHD, is that she's able to hyper focus in like this laser way that is real intense. And it helps her to develop skills sometimes that other kids maybe couldn't. So like, let me give you an example. A month or so ago, she decided to go through this origami phase where she wanted to learn how to fold paper into, rubber duckies or what have you, swans, etc. And before I know it, I bet we have 200 or 300 origami things up in her room, because all she did for days was sit there hyper focused on origami. So now it's beaded bracelets. And so she came into my inner circle today, and while it was hailing out, and she was saying, she's starting her own business. And I'm like, well, we're not going to sell these to my people. And yet it was hilarious because somebody's like, what's your business name going to be, Ari? And so I taught her how to get on ChatGPT. She found a business name, which is, instead of Beautiful Creations, it's Beautiful Creations by Ari. She's asking me if I will like start the website for her, and she's like dialed in. She's so dialed in. So don't be shocked if she runs in here right now and tries to sell you a bracelet. Just it's all good. I'll take care of it on my end. Okay, what was my point? Oh, my point is this. So if you having a hard time focus, such as myself, you can go to jenniferallwood.com/focus. I have this total like free worksheet that's going to help you kind of dial in on maybe what you could do a business on. Okay. So in the last podcast, I was saying that a lot of times people don't go from the dreaming to doing because they're still looking for their passion or their calling, and they want to base a business off that. I find that this thinking is a little bit problematic. And I want to tell you why I think it's problematic. First of all, I think that we went through a season, and I think that season has ended, by the way. But I think we went through a season where a lot of business coaches were saying, you got to find your calling, you got to find your passion and monetize that. And I think it's actually really bad advice, because the truth is passion is powerful, but it's not always profitable. Okay? Let me say that again. Passion is powerful, but it's not always profitable. I can be really passionate about, singing in the shower is the example I always use, but I'm no good at it. I'm not going to make any money off of it. So basing a business around that would be terrible, right? And when people are talking about finding their calling and doing the business over that, I think your calling is really more about like how you live almost than what it is that you do for work. Okay. So I want to talk about a couple of points. Number one, is it wise to start a business on whatever you have figured out your passion is? Okay. Couple things I want to make note of. Tim Tebow, I got to meet him one time in real life. And in case any of you have ever wondered, like, is Tim Tebow the same person like in real life as what you see him to be on social media? He absolutely is. Loves Jesus with all of his heart. Just an amazing man of incredible character. Okay. So, but I heard him say once that the Latin root of the word passion means to suffer. And this is why, they have the movie The Passion of the Christ. And Tim Tebow has said, like, real passion means that we're willing to like endure for something. Like passion sounds like a lot of hype, especially with, romance and sex and movies. And, we like to talk about passion in a hyped up fashion, right? But the truth is, like, passion is supposed to be something that you will endure. You're going to endure for it. It's going to be like sacrifice. The dictionary says, let me make sure I read this right, defines passion as intense desire or enthusiasm for something. So yes, that's true, but are you willing to suffer for it? Are you willing to endure for it? So like before you quit like your day job that you think that you hate to invest thousands of dollars and many months or years into like a business you're passionate about, like ask yourself, are you willing to suffer for it? Are you willing to endure for it? Also, you need to ask yourself, will people actually pay you for it? And is it something that you can see yourself doing and being good at for the long haul? Or is it just for like right now? Because the thing is, passion wanes. I mean, for those of you that have been married for longer than 10 minutes, you will know that you don't wake up every day feeling super passionate about the person you're spending your life with. Or maybe it's just Jason and I. I mean, I always, I can't actually use our marriage as an example because I feel like we're a little bit of an anomaly because my husband is such a passionate human that um I jokingly say I either want to kill him or go to bed with him. One of the two, all the time. I'm joking, but not joking. And also, this is a PG-13 podcast, so hopefully your little kids aren't around. But I think that our passion can kind of come and go. And so, but yet I'm in this marriage, and Jason's in this marriage for like the long haul, right? And so, I see women all the time who like quit their six-figure jobs. I had a lady one time I was coaching who has a 7-figure a year job. What does that mean, Jen? She makes over $1 million a year, wanting to quit that to do something she's passionate about. And I'm like, oh man, I just hope you know that, starting your own business around whatever it is that you're doing, starting your own business means basically you're trading working a lot of time for somebody else to trading working a lot of time for yourself in the beginning. It is going to involve stress and overwhelm and, lack of funds in the beginning. And so especially for you creatives, like whatever you're passionate about today, I just want you to know it might not be the thing you're passionate about next year or 5 years down the road, or even next month or in the next decade, because passion can change. And especially if you're a creative such as myself, like we are notorious for chasing like the next shiny thing and getting passionate about the next thing. And so I do think that passion sometimes has its seasons. And also, if we're going to relate passion to a marriage, can I just say it's also our responsibility to continue like stirring up the passion and getting re-passionate about the person that we're married to, etc. Which is also really, really stinking possible. I can tell you that Jason and I are almost 28 years in, and I have never felt so passionate about the man in all my life. So but if you had asked me that 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said that. Nothing against him or our marriage. Nothing was wrong with the marriage, but we were knee deep in kids. We were knee deep in teenagers. We were knee deep in an adoption. We were knee deep in my business having just exploded. And, so I do think that passion kind of comes and goes, and it could be really dangerous to just start a business based on passion alone. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Second point I want to bring up is that when you're obsessing over like finding your calling and starting a business on that, or, finding your life's purpose and starting a business on that, I think that can be something that changes and is seasonal. Also, I also think that that's just a really bad thing for you to be super duper focused on. I have a quote from Chalene Johnson. So I'm quoting Tim Tebow and I'm quoting Chalene Johnson. Okay. So Chalene said one time on social media, and I screenshot it because I wanted to remember it and be able to quote it sometime. So here's what she said: I don't think we need to search for our life's purpose. We just need to embrace the fact that our life does serve a purpose. Boom. Okay. One more time from Chalene Johnson. We don't need to search for our life's purpose. We just need to embrace the fact that our life does serve a purpose. And I'm like, okay, that is solid. Like, that'll preach right there. All right. So I personally don't think that we are called to just one thing or we have just one purpose on this side of heaven. I just don't, because I think that there are seasons. And in Ecclesiastes, in the Bible talks about to all things under heaven, there is a season, right? So for a season, I was called to being my husband's biggest supporter, to him being the one that was out on the basketball court, with all eyes on him. He was the one that was in sales. He was the one that's, out making all the money. He's the one that I'm on the bench supporting. I'm popping out babies like we're bunnies. And, that was my calling. That was my purpose in that season. I was called to be at home and to support. Okay. Then I was called to, have our painting company. Then I felt like I was called to teach people how to paint. And then I think my season has really shifted over to just coaching and which involves some teaching, of course, but it is really inspiring and calling people up to something different for themselves. Is this going to be the same thing that I'm called to, or I feel like my life's purpose is in the next 5 years? I don't know. I don't know, friends, but I think there's some pressure to like find your calling. And if you have felt like I've got to figure out what my calling is or what my purpose is so I can start a business with that, like stop, because it's leaving you in this like a habitual state of paralysis where you're waiting, to find that one thing and then everything's going to change. And I just think that that's dangerous territory. And I think that sometimes we have an inkling, we have a nudge, we have a thought, we have a desire, and we're wanting like confirmation that this is it. You're not going to get that. There is no person under heaven that ever started a business that had 100% confirmation from God that this will be successful before they did. They just didn't. Now, you may have heard something from heaven. You may have had people prophesy over you. You may have had a word of knowledge come straight from the Lord, from the Holy Spirit. But that doesn't mean that it was 100% still guaranteed to work out the way you thought or whatever. And so if you have been stalling because you're still trying to figure out what your calling is or your purpose is, I encourage you to start anyway. To start anyway. And so, what if your calling on this side of heaven isn't about your business? But what if it's about like how you love people and serve them wherever God has you right now? I read a quote one time. What if, let's see, what was it like? What if your biggest life's work may be the children that you are raising? You're thinking your life's work is like writing a book or starting a podcast or something. But what if like your biggest life's work is to raise somebody who is a mover and a shaker and does some things on the side of heaven? And so perhaps your calling isn't even about your business. And so remember that your business doesn't have to be about your calling in order to help fund your calling. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. Okay. Another thing I just want to talk about real quick is that I think passion it's not a good business model. Because business takes so much more than emotion. And passion is an emotion, it's a feeling. And for me, my feelings tend to be liars sometimes. I can feel all passionate about a certain topic and end up a lot of times being completely wrong, by the way. I had to apologize to Jason yesterday. Okay. You guys want to know what we had to argue about yesterday? Does anybody want to know? And are you going to judge me for just being a crappy human? And can we just like keep it real here? Because I mean, we have a phenomenal marriage, but it is, with not without its disagreements and scuffles because we're both very passionate people. And so Jason likes to do this thing where when we have a telemarketer call, he likes to kind of, is the word goad them, like kind of like entertain conversations with telemarketers and kind of lead them on, and to where that telemarketer is like, oh yeah, I got one, baby. And then Jason will drop a bomb on her or something. Okay. So me, on the other hand, I will not pick up the phone unless it has a number, a name attached to a number. I just won't. I don't use my phone for that. Okay. I am a texter, I will text you every day of the week, but I'm not going to take a phone call unless it has somebody's name on it. If it's a family member, if it's a friend, if it's a neighbor, then I'll answer. Otherwise, it's not happening. So I don't want to answer telemarketing calls. My husband, on the other hand, will not only take a telemarketing call, but completely lead the people on. I like yesterday, I was so busy. I was knee deep in just work. I just had so much stuff on my plate because Jason and Ava have been out of the country for a week on a missions trip. Ari and I had been in Florida on a cousin's trip with my family members, all like an all girls trip. And so, when you own your own business, all of you who do, you know that you have to do a lot of prep work beforehand before you can be off. Okay. Then you try to be off as much as possible. And then you have to do a lot of work on the back end to catch up from being off. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, will you just at least like let me know in the chat that you understand the conundrum that we're in as business owners? And so yesterday was my first day back in the office, and I just had a crap ton to do. So it's like 6 o'clock, and I'm still trying to get one more podcast episode recorded for the day. And I hear Jason pick up a telemarketer, and the telemarketer is wanting to know if we're in the market for selling this house, which by the way, we are not. But Jason is telling him, yeah, we'll entertain the idea. And the guy's like, well, how much would you want for it? And Jason's giving him a real elevated number. And I'm just feeling furious on the inside because I'm like, I'm just trying to get done. And my husband's over here playing with a telemarketer. And what the heck was my point of telling you this story? Let me think. Well, it was to definitely tell you that our marriage isn't perfect, but they were very passionate people. And I can't even remember what the heck the point was. I don't even know. Oh, I think I was talking about how passion is it's like business has to be more than just passion, because passion is feelings, and your feelings are liars, and your feelings will make you behave and do things in ways that you shouldn't. And so I may or may not have said some things to my husband that were less than lovely and Christ-like about how he, talks to telemarketers, which to him is entertaining and funny. And to me, just, oh, it irritates the heck out of me. And so then I had to like apologize. And so, I felt passionate in the moment, but I was wrong. And so I just want you to know, like, if you're not feeling super passionate about your business right now, that's okay, because passion again is a feeling, and your feelings will not always take you to great places. All right. So when it comes to business, you've got to stick with the things that people will pay you for. You've got to stick to the things that you have some skill in. You've got to be able to give it some discipline. Will you show up even when it's hard? What are you going to do when the passion's gone? You may love making earrings or painting furniture. But if that's like the only thing you're passionate about right now, and that's what you're starting a business around, what are you going to do when you're on your 10,000th pair of earrings? And I speak that over someone who is doing an earring business right now. I pray that for you in the name of Jesus, that you would get to 10,000 orders. But you get to 10,000 orders of earrings and you're probably a little tired of making earrings. So what are you going to do when the passion wanes? There is something to be said for having like a more boring business, if you can call it that. I think that's what oh gosh, what is her name? She's so smart. Hang on. Cody Sanchez, I think is what she calls them. A boring business. It that solves like a real problem, but is more sustainable for the long term than just a passion project. I would rather you have a more boring business that solves a real problem for people and is sustainable than a passion business, something you're really, really passionate about, but with no audience 100 times over, 100 times over. So maybe I just want to like just present a thing here because I feel like this is going to land for some of you. I'm just going to challenge you into just thinking a little bit differently about your calling or about your purpose. So, what if your business isn't supposed to be about your passion? What if the business God is calling you to today is supposed to just fund your passion project? Okay. What if the day job that you have right now is supposed to be the money that you make that you're able to take and invest into your passion project? But what if you're supposed to stay there? And I'm all for somebody, leaving corporate and getting into being a business owner, by the way. But I just want to challenge some of your thinking, because sometimes we think we're going to make a business out of our passion. But I just want to challenge you into, what if you're supposed to make the money over here and that'll fund whatever you're passionate about over here? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Maybe that day job that you're in right now that you're really tempted to walk away from because you've been listening to my podcast for years and years. Like, what if that's the exact thing that God maybe wants to use to continue to provide funds for you so that you can invest into whatever passion project you have? you know, you teach Canva lessons, you teach people how to use Canva because it pays you really well. Maybe that income is what's going to fund like your women's ministry or your book project or something like that. Like that feels like wisdom and it feels like stewardship. So I just think that the whole passion conversation needs to be re-examined. And I want you to know that passion in and of itself is not enough to start a business off of. Feeling like this is your calling, that's great, but that doesn't mean you're supposed to start a business around your calling. God may have given you some other skills. He may have given you some other ways of making money. But I just think it's dangerous to only look at your passion for starting a business. Did that help anybody today? I hope it did. I mean, I'm all for people starting businesses, but I think that there is this thinking that we need to be in love with our business. And I think that's actually dangerous to think. You don't have to always be in love with it. I'm not always in love with what I do, but I am committed to it for this season. Until God releases me, here I am. You're stuck with me. But I'm not always in love with it. Does that make sense? A strong business will support your life, but it doesn't have to define your life. When we are not understanding that in and of ourselves, whether or not our business ever makes a dollar or not, if we don't know like who we are in Christ and what our value is in heaven and the fact that God calls us above and not beneath, and he calls us beloved, he calls us blessed and highly favored, he calls us friend, like if you don't get that, you will tie the success or the failure of your business to your self-worth. And that is a dangerous thing to do as well. And so, the thing that you're passionate about, whether or not you turn that into a business, I think is beside the point. There are plenty of other ways that you need to like define your life and the success of your life, how you feel about your life, that are outside of the scope of your business. And so I hope that this is helpful for someone today. If it was you, because I feel like it's helpful for a handful of you, okay? And we'll have thousands of people that listen to this episode. If you are watching on YouTube, would you just literally put in the comments so that I know who this was for? If this is a conversation that really didn't resonate with you, but you're like, oh, you know what? My sister-in-law keeps talking about finding her passion and starting a business, or my neighbor has been trying to figure out their calling and start, like, please just forward this podcast episode to them. Do you know that the number one way outside of me spending money on ads for my podcast, which I don't spend any money on podcast ads, but the number one way for me to get more new listeners to my show and for any podcaster is for you to share our episodes with people, whether that's on your Instagram stories or whether that's just, with one person. Either way, I'll take it. And I just appreciate you so, so much. So I love you, friends. I hope that this was good motivation for someone today to either stay right now to where God has planted you and just use those funds for your passion project. Or I hope it sets somebody free who's been looking for the thing they're passionate about. And the truth is, like us creative people, we're multi-passionate. We're passionate about so many different things. So maybe you're asking yourself the wrong question. Not what am I passionate about so I can start a business, but what business is God calling me to start right now in this season? I think it's a healthier question. It's just better for right now. All right. Bless you, friends. Toodaloo. See you soon. Bye-bye. Easton, did I just say Toodaloo? That is scam likely. Never answering it. See? Scam likely.